Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here, back again with another repair video for you. Behind me, a 2004 Mercury Grand Marquis. It's kind of the staple of the Ford fleet line. They call it a Grand Marquis in this particular batch of clothes, but it's also known as a Crown Victoria amongst other things, and is pretty much that standard Ford that you see that's been produced, well, just about forever. The reason this is in here today is because it has an issue with the gas gauge. The gas gauge is constantly reading full no matter how much is in the tank. I've run into this, well, usually when I run into this problem, I normally find it to be an issue with the sending unit inside the tank. So I'm going to take a little gamble today. I know I tell you to quote-unquote diagnose things, blah-bitty-blah, and I will be diagnosing this. I'm not going to buy any parts until I verify my suspicions. But what I'll do is I will remove the fuel pump / sending unit from the gas tank itself, and I will check the resistance of the sending unit on the bench. I find this to be, well, the best way to deal with something like this, because that way I can move the arm for the sending unit in any place I want it to go, and I can check the resistance and see if it changes. In fact, there have been times when I've done this and found that maybe the arm was sticking a little bit, something goofy going on with it. I can't really think of any other way to check a sending unit, or a good way to check a sending unit. I could pull the instrument cluster out and check the voltage going into the back of the gauge assembly, but considering that it's always on full, and when I turn the key on it slightly goes up a little bit more, that says to me that most likely it's getting a bad signal, because if the gauge wasn't working at all, I would think the gauge wouldn't move at all. So I'm going off a lot of my experience here. Your experience may vary, so, and I know some of you may beat me up for this, but you know what, if you've got a better way of checking sending units without having to pull them out of the tank, well, I'm all ears. So please let me know in the comments, or better yet, there will be a link to a forum discussion about this video that will be down below that you can speak to it there. I feel like I've spent a whole lot of time on this intro. Rather than doing that, I'm going to raise the rear end of this vehicle and get up underneath there and show you what we're dealing with as far as getting access to the sending unit / fuel pump assembly.
I'm going to place my jack directly under the differential. Some of you get freaked out by this because of some differentials having aluminum housings, but I can assure you that this is good old-fashioned cast iron, and it will not be harmed at all by placing a jack underneath it or putting the weight of the vehicle on it, or at least the weight of the rear of the vehicle on it. So I'm going to jack this up and put my jack stands under the axle assembly itself. This is pretty much how I'd handle just about any rear-wheel drive car. Alright, now luckily, right behind this differential is the gas tank. And right there, I believe, is access to our fuel pump / sending unit assembly. I'm not for certain, but it may come as one unit. You may have to buy the sending unit and the fuel pump all as one assembly. I'm going to remove this in order to get a look at the sending unit, just to see if that's a problem or not. Looks like we have up here a not so quick connection for the fuel line that I'm going to be removing, and then there's an electrical connection around here somewhere, I'm not sure exactly where, that we're also going to have to get to before we get started. But in addition to that, I've also got my oil pan here, just in case when I take this off of here we get a bunch of gas coming out, which is a distinct possibility. I don't know how much gas is in this, and neither does the owner. That's why we're here. But let's hope it's not so much. Well, I just found out the electrical connector, if you follow the wires that go up here on top of the tank, actually end up here, and you can barely see through this hole where the electrical connector is. And this is where I'm going to hopefully disconnect it. Thinking I'm going to go grab my pocket screwdriver. Pocket screwdriver really helps sometimes. I'll be honest, it was not the easiest thing to disconnect. Well, I'll just pull it up here so you can see it. So there's the connector. Like I said, not the easiest thing to disconnect. I'm just gonna pull it down through here so that my assembly can come out unencumbered. Here we are. We've got our electrical connector out of here, and I've got to say that it was a lot more difficult getting this down because I had to come all the way over here because there's like a little indentation right here in this cross brace that you were able to slip this through, but nowhere else. How convenient, right? Well, I'm going to... I always say I'm going to do things, and then they kind of don't work. I'm going to pop this lock. There we go. Alright, so that'll be ready when the time comes. I'm going to go get my quick connect. But you know what? I'm going to take off all the fasteners, save one. And what that will do is that will make it so that I'm not having this gasoline drip down in my armpit as I'm trying to remove all the rest of these fasteners. And I just noticed another electrical connection. That's unfortunate because it looks like this one goes for quite a ways. But since I want to get this out of here and on the bench, I want to be able to definitely remove it from the vehicle. And that looks like it terminates up inside the vehicle. Alright, well, this Ford's better idea of putting this separate wire that goes all the way up inside the trunk and terminates, I am not real sold on that. I just don't want to go through the trouble of that is where I'm at with it. But I'm going to see what I can do to get this assembly away. And then if I can remove the sending unit from inside here, great, I'll deal with it that way. If not, then I'll look to where this plug terminates, because I just don't have it in me to go there. Because at the moment I'm facing like a bunch of gasoline coming out of this thing when I got to remove it as it is, so I want to try and avoid that. So I'm going to remove these fasteners. Looks like 6 of them around the circumference of this, and see if I can get this assembly out far enough. Eric the Car Guy, thinking out loud. These are 8mm. I need a wrench. The worst thing about this car is it makes it look easy, but then you actually go to do it and it's not. You know what? I wish I had a gear wrench this size too. Probably be done by now. And this is why we wear safety glasses, kids, so we don't drop wrenches in our faces. Well, we'll drop the wrenches in our faces, but not in our eyes. Now this is the last fastener, so we may start to see some leakage as I remove it. So be ready. I'm gonna position my stuff, or my pan, so that I can catch anything that might be coming out of here. Yep, there's some gas in there. You know, this is kind of a good idea and maybe not such a good idea. Kind of a good idea in that you don't have to drop the tank to get to it. Not such a good idea in that you're gonna lose half a tank of gas if it's full. Let's let that drain and come back. Notice I'm prying up high. If you pry down here, it's gonna follow the pry bar down to where you're holding it. Gotta be an easier way to do this.
Okay, it's been some time and it's still draining out. I think the tank was completely filled and it's just taken forever to get it all out of there. But at this point, I filled up 3, almost 4 different containers and I'm still going. Luckily I have this empty gas tank here, and since I'm dumping this into oil stuff, I'm going to use this shop rag to try and filter out any particulates that are in this gas so that I can reuse it. It's about the only thing I could think of, but I figured it was worthy of showing you what I'm doing. This stuff is looking pretty nasty, mainly because it's cleaning out my oil pan and there's all kinds of junk in here, and I'm not really sure that I'm going to reuse this gasoline in this car, but the last little bit that's in here, I'm not even going to try to pour in because I know that's really gross. I'm just going to pour that in my used oil container and it'll mix with that just fine. Alright, I'm going to admit that it took freaking forever to get to this point, to where this isn't dripping out anymore. So now I'm going to finish prying this away. See if I can get this
assembly out of here so I can get a look and see if my suspicions are correct about the sending unit. Looks like I'm going to disconnect that fuel line after all. Seems I'm going to be able to move it around a bit easier if I do. I'll give you a better look at that. What I have here is a set of quick disconnect tools. And the object is to find the one that's about the right size. I'm thinking I'm going to go with this one right here. And you put the tool in this way. Make it face the line. Push it in underneath. Sometimes you have to push the line in towards the tool to get it to fully seat on there, and once you do, you should be able to disconnect it just like that. This is what I was worried about, whether or not I'd even be able to have clearance to get this all the way out. After a bit of fighting, I got it loose. All I need to do is figure out a way to get it up out of here far enough to get access to my prize. The whole time I'm doing this, gasoline is just dumping on my face, so I'm very thankful to have my safety glasses on. So as you can see, they're covered with junk. Okay, at this point I've pulled it out far enough to where I can get access to my sending unit. You can see it's held on by two fasteners there. Now that I've got it out this far, I'm just going to remove those two fasteners, take that sending unit out of here, take it over to the bench, test it, see if it's good or bad, and then go from there. I think those look like 8mm. Could be wrong. Could be more like 7 or so. But I've got one there and one there. Okay, the verdict is in. It's a 7mm. I've got both fasteners out. I've removed the sending unit from the fuel pump assembly. Now, it has one wire going to it that is the power feed wire, and then it grounds basically to the outside of the housing. There was another little connector up here that went with one of the upper fasteners for it, and so basically that's its power and ground. And as the tank is full or low, this is an arm that floats up and down on top of the fuel, and that sends a signal to the dashboard telling you how much gas you have in the tank. Given that there's no place that I can take this wire apart and just disconnect it without just cutting it and then having to go back and solder something together or crimp connect or what have you, I'm just going to do my testing right here, because I have full range of motion with this, and all I've got to do is clip onto the outside for the ground and then just touch here for my power side. And I'm going to get my ohm meter, and I'm just going to run this thing through its entire sweep just to see if I can get a reading. If I find any dead spots or anything in my reading, then I know for sure, or my reading stays consistent, then I know for sure this sending unit is junk and I need to swap it out. I have my DVOM out, and I have it set to the ohm scale, and I've got it set to auto ranging. Here are my leads. I always touch them together to start with, see how much resistance I got. Just a little bit. I got that 4/10, what have you. It's going to be extremely difficult to try and show you this multimeter and where I'm touching the leads. So I'm going to show you where I'm putting the leads right now. I'm going to take this lead and put it here where it comes in there, and then I'm just going to take the other one and touch it to the outside. As you can see, I already have continuity. I already think I might have found the problem. As it gets down to there, I'm losing continuity. So I've only got half of the sweep. So this sending unit is definitely bad according to just the audio part of this. I'll show you the actual numbers. But yeah, when it reaches that point there, there's nothing left until you get above half. So at this point, I'm fairly certain that there's an issue right here. Or maybe not. Like according to the numbers, it's a nice even transition. It's just when it gets up around that 100 ohms is when the auto range turns off.
Alright, Eric, you must have been inhaling too much gasoline that day, because it's not the auto ranging that disconnects at 100 ohms, it's the audio indicator. So the audio that indicates that you have continuity disconnects at 100 ohms, not the auto ranging. Please disregard that previous statement.
But I'm moving this through its full sweep. Starts out down here at like 36 ohms. And slowly I increase. There's that 100 ohm mark. Now I'm all the way maxed out. Looks like 160. Yep, as soon as it falls below that 100 ohms, it comes back. So it goes from like 38 ohms all the way up to like 160. And there are no dead spots in the movement. So here's the deal. Like I say, sometimes when I run into this fixes it. But it could also mean that the sending unit's not the problem, and the problem is like up in the gauge assembly or the wiring somewhere. But if nothing else, I can rule out, I believe, this sending unit here in the tank at this point, because it does have a clean sweep of movement. And like I said, my auto ranging as far as the beep is concerned seems to kick off at about 100 ohms. That said, I mean, it still continues up. It still looks good as far as the resistance is concerned. So I don't think I have a bad sending unit here. There's either a problem elsewhere or what I did just fixed it. And trust me, it's not uncommon for something like this just to go in there and move the wiper arm around to fix something like this. We'll get it all back together and then get a look at the gauge and see what happens, because we know, well, geez, we're down to about half a tank now that we dumped out all of that gas in order to get this sending unit out. So we'll see where we're at. Okay, I'm all bolted back up. I have restored my electrical connection, and now I just need to reinstall my fuel line. For these quick disconnects, you just push it on until it clicks, and then put your retainer back on, and you're done. And he thought it was hard. He did. I heard you saying it. Poof. All right. Now I'm going to jump in the car, see if this thing works now. If not, well, monumental fail for me. If it does, well, I get to be the hero. Time for the moment of truth. I'm gonna say that gauge is now reading correctly. Don't ask me what I did, but this is not the first time this has happened to me. I'm saying about that much came out when we did our sending unit and stuff. We'll monitor it over time. Gosh darn it, I think this is fixed. Like I said, I usually find it to be an issue with the sending unit, not with the gauge. Remember, our gauge was pegged above full when we started, and now that we've emptied out, well, a substantial amount, I would say at least 5 gallons worth of gas, it now seems to be reading normally. Well, it's hard to argue with results. This may not often be the case, but I've found this to be the case often enough to where this is where I go if I have a problem with, the gas gauge readings. You will find wiring issues from time to time. You will find gauge issues from time to time, but I have often found that it is a sending unit issue, which is why I went there, and that was an awful lot of work on a guess. And I'm just going to throw that out there now. But the only way that I know of accurately testing a sending unit is to actually take the sending unit, move the wiper arm, and see if you can, check the resistance. And as we saw, the resistance was clean all the way up. And if you have a bad one that has a bad part of the resistor assembly there, then you'll see it right away when you're doing the ohm testing, because when you go to move the arm will reach a certain point and you'll lose continuity. And once you lose continuity in that wiper arm, that's it. That's all that needs to happen. And once that happens, well, then you know that your sending unit is bad for sure. Whereas in this one, we saw in the full sweep it was good. And I had a gut feeling when I put it all back together that
the gauge would read properly after we were done. And it did, because remember, it started at full, ended at just a little under a quarter of a tank, and I know I got about 5 gallons out of that tank. Here's the other thing that's often true. Anytime you go to have to work on a fuel pump or a sending unit or something, it just seems to never fail that the gas tank is full. Not sure why that is. It's just one of those things, I guess, that we have to deal with. It's nice when they're empty though, and if you have to drop the gas tank in a situation like this, well, if you're up in the northern part of the world where you have salt on your roads, you just be prepared to be in for a fight. And if you have to knock gas strap bolts loose, soak them in penetrating oil and then use an impact. Do not try to use like a ratchet or anything. I can tell you right now that's a recipe for disaster, and it's probably not going to work. Your best bet with rusty bolts on gas straps is going to be an impact and some time with some penetrating oil, good penetrating oil. Like your PB Blaster or some specifically designed penetrating oil. Not really a fan of WD-40 in those situations. Not saying that doesn't work, but I prefer other types. And I've actually had people over on my website on the forum, there was somebody who put up a recipe for making their own penetrating oil using like transmission fluid and some other solvents or something like that they used in a spray bottle. They swore by it. Lots of options there is kind of my point, but I feel I'm getting off topic here, which was basically the gas gauge in this 2004 Mercury Marquis LS. So we solved the problem. We did it in a hack way, but you know what? It's fixed. It's going out the door. This lady's going to be happy because she's not going to have to guess whether she's got gas in her tank or not anymore. Once again, can't argue with results. Hey, if you have automotive questions, head on over to the new EricTheCarGuy.com. Check out our categories full of different topics that may pertain to your particular problem. Click on that topic, and that will go to subcategories. You might just find specifically the answer that you're looking for in that. Try to make it as easy as I could for you, but you know what? Nobody's perfect. If that doesn't work, type in a couple of keywords to that search function and see what you come up with as it combs through our database. If you still don't find an answer, we're not out of options for you. You can sign up for our forum and our website. It's absolutely free. All you need is an email address. Just be sure to respond to the confirmation email, or it should end up in your inbox. You don't click that link in that confirmation email, you ain't going to register. So just be sure to do that. Check your spam folder, bulk folder. Look for it somewhere, because that's the #1 problem people seem to have. And post your question over at Service and Repair, and we'll be happy to try to help you over there. Other than that, you can connect with me socially on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. And I close each of my videos with, be safe, have fun, and stay dirty. And days like this, be prepared to smell like gasoline. Hope you like it. Oh, and don't forget, gasoline in the armpits. Owie. Ow. See you next time.